All right, so it is Monday, May 11th, 2026. The finance meeting is 4:33 p.m. Our first item is the agenda. Is there a motion on the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Oh, there's a recommended action.
Yeah.
To be clear on the clerk. That's okay?
Yeah.
It's the last
I just was,
breaking news. Yeah, do you want to just say it as?
yeah. I didn't weigh in on that, but
I move to adopt the agenda as amended as follows. Add to the consent agenda, item 3.6, the ONE cleanup / clean out proposal for Mayor Mulvaney, Stanek, and Councilor.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Carpenter. Thank you. Any discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Oh,
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Did we also want to amend the agenda to the order so that item 4.2 and 4.1, we need to make that?
We can, or without objection, I could just reorder them without objection. And I got great. So we'll continue as the motion indicates. So again, I'll call the question again. All in favor with the motion to adopt the agenda as amended, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On to public forum. This practice of the Board of Finance, first go in the room and then online for any members who are here to address us. Please raise your Zoom hand, and we will first go with former City Councilor Sharon Busher. Hello, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. It's chilly out there. I sent a couple of questions. Well, I sent one to all of you regarding retirement, and Catherine sent me an email back. And so I know it was, I was really concerned about what the impact was on the budget and on the taxpayer, and I couldn't extract that on my own, so I needed all of your help to try to figure that out. And then I got off topic because then I looked at the funded ratio and at 66%, and I wasn't sure if that was a healthy ratio. And I was worried about the long-term viability and sustainability, which is not part of the budget process, and I realize that. But I still think at some point it would be good to understand that. And if all of you do, then maybe someone can drop me a note so I understand it too. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, on your consent, there's an airport item for noise mitigation. And I read that, and once again, I don't know, I hope it's not my age or my mind, but it talked about looking at 300 houses, and this contract is a phase 6 or something, and it expires December 31st, 2030. And then I thought it said to select 50 to make improvements, sound improvements, windows, etc. So that left me wondering, what happened to the other 250 that were looked at? And so I did send an email off to the director of the airport asking for clarification. And I don't expect immediate response or any response, but I would like someone to kind of update me as to whether I am misunderstanding that. And the last thing I wanted to say, I want to compliment the mayor and her administration for the very complete research on the question about funding for the Richard Kemp Center. It was very thorough, and I understood it all. And Richard was a force, and I really liked him. And for those of us who knew him and shared his mission, I'm sure that he and his family and all of us are pleased that the money is going to be allocated and definitely used for an important purpose in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. If anyone else is online and would like to address the Board of Finance for Public Forum, please raise your Zoom hand. Otherwise, I'm going to close public forum and move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion on our consent agenda? So moved by Councilor Carpenter, seconded by Councilor Barlow. Thank you. Any discussion on our consent agenda before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So we're gonna first go on line, actually, I think what we're gonna do, unless there's objection, we're gonna go to item 4.2. Because of the early start time of Board of Finance at 4:30 instead of 5, it's had a little bit of a mix up with staff. So absent objection, I'm gonna take us to item 4.2 with our water resources team, and then we'll go back to item 4.1 related to the Richard Kemp Center. So we'll start first with item 4.2. Come on up, TPW, EPW. It's Alan.
All right, Jim Spencer, Director of Public Works. I'm joined by Division Director Megan Moyer and Jess Lavalette, Director of Finance and Administration. Excited to bring to you a organizational adjustment, really looking to the future of our utilities' future needs. And we've been doing this across DPW's divisions, and we'll have a tweak as well from traffic division coming soon. I think the important thing here is we're really working within our means, no new FTEs as part of this proposal, yet trying to meet our future needs. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Yeah, I think one of the sort of important steps in this particular item is the 3-level tiering, which I don't know that we've seen in the city yet. So a lot of the tiering we've done in the past has gone from a current grade and only upward tiering. This is actually creating 3 tiers, so an in-training tier that's below the grade of the current meter tech position, and then an upward tier. So it's providing both the city an opportunity to hire somebody who maybe is a non-traditional person for this job, who doesn't have the background, and actually have them do the on-the-job training, and as they progress through the different certifications and proficiencies, then they would click up. With the tiering, we never make it so that you have to get all the way to the tippy top. That's not for everybody. But with these training positions in this lower level tier, we're not going to let somebody hang out there forever. They do need to progress and get to that sort of standardized level 1 that we've described. I think the other piece, hopefully you found the information that Jess put together, riveting about our meters and the fact that they, like many things in the city, are old and are dying now at a quicker rate, which sort of makes this the ideal time to go ahead and add to the metering staff. And as Chapin said, we're not creating a new FTE, we're taking from a different place in the organization that we thought we needed. We're saying we don't know that we have enough work for that person. We know we have this need over in the field staff, and hope that you will support our proposal. And if you have any questions about meters, this is your person.
Thank you, Megan, Chapin, and Jess for being here. Questions from or comments from the board? Councilor Carpenter.
Just on the lower tier, which I like that idea a lot, actually. Because I would assume in this job market that you'll do better if you can bring in and train up. But what happens if that doesn't happen? Because is it structured such that the employee understands that 1 year or 2 years or however you deal that they might not be staying on?
Yep, I mean, in the job description, I
Yeah.
think there are specific requirements. I don't remember off the top of my head if it's within a year.
You have to receive their Class D certification, their license within 1 year.
Okay.
And there's a couple of their proficiencies. At that point, if they hadn't, we would, be working, documenting, coaching, and then
Yes.
performance improvement plan. And then if they weren't able to obtain their license, then it's
And with these tiers, I mean, the way it's been working even, or at least how I envision, within that 90-day probationary period, you're sitting down with them right from the get-go and saying, this is your trajectory, this is where you need to be. And if you're not there, then obviously we'd be working with HR, that's not our intent. But we need these people to progress to at least that level 1 for them to be what we need for our operational.
I mean, you can often catch work ethic things right up in the beginning, but then if you want competency, that's a little harder
Yes.
to get.
Yes, and that's why all of hopefully the tier descriptions that you'll see coming through, certainly from DPW, it's not just about how long you've been somewhere, right? It's not a survival award. It's not even just did you pass the test, but it's do you have those things and are you actually proficient in the things that we need you to do? And so having checklists and having really clear matrices to make sure that somebody is able to do all parts of the job and doesn't, you know, sort of get to year 10 and you realize that the person doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Is there a motion on this item?
I would move it as written, so that
Moved by Councilor Carpenter and seconded by Councilor Barlow. Thank you. Any further questions or comments before we vote?
I would just say that it's 4.4, not 4.2, and you said it.
Yes.
So just for the correction.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not 4.2.
Okay.
Lots of confusion.
all right, great,
Apologies.
no problem.
We are voting on.
I stand down.
No worries. Moving on, item 4.2.
Great.
Water Resource and Human Services Personnel Report. We have a first and a second. And seeing no further discussion, did I call a vote? I'm gonna call the vote. All right. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Guys, we're sitting so close to each other.
Yes. I'm not opposed.
I mean, they won't be.
All right, so we're gonna move on back to the bay. We are now joined by our RID Director, Dr. Kelly Perkins. So we're gonna go back one item to item 4.1, which is a response to the letter of Team Hughes, who's the Executive Director of the Richard Kemp Center around funding recommendations. Kelly, good evening. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Good evening, all. Thank you so much for your patience. This memo concerns, I believe it is the August 25th Board of Finance meeting. Christine Hughes and some other parties brought forth a letter and a request to the city to account for what happened to I guess it was under regional programs at one point, the Fund for Racial Justice, per the 2021 Racial Justice through Economic and Criminal Justice resolution from the council. And so what you have is an accounting, to the best that I was able to, of how that money was spent. What I ultimately found was in FY21, FY22, and then FY24, it seems that that money was split to fund to support REIB's budget. FY22 and FY23, as we know, had the ARPA funds or whatnot that were supporting the budget. And so the letter also asked, which is the part I don't have, for removal of that line item. Like essentially their understanding was that this money was to go towards the development of a cultural empowerment center. And so they wanted a plan for how the city will fulfill its commitment to the Richard Kemp Center. And so what I have proposed in front of you, one of the things that I found in my accounting was that in REIB's FY21 budget, there was money that was earmarked to be spent on basically a feasibility study for the development of cultural empowerment center. And so with that, the Richard Kemp Center was actualized without ever having received that money. And so to me, that $50,000 is concretely something that was going to go to that effort. And so in an attempt to start to move the conversations forward, I would like to be able to provide funding to the Richard Kemp Center from the city in a total of $50,000 over the course of 2 years, so split evenly between FY '27 and FY '28.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins, for that overview. I also see we're joined by the Executive Director of the Richard Kemp Center, Christine Hughes. Christine, there's no need to address the board unless you would want to. I would just want to provide you some time if you would like to address the board, and we can give you the promotion to be on screen and or at least be unmuted if you would like.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to add. I was touched by what Sharon said earlier, her support. So I don't have anything specific to add. I just came to hear, you know, what was going to happen. So I don't have anything to add at this time, but thanks for the opportunity.
Of course, thanks for being here, Christine. And I will open it up now for discussion with the board. And Dr. Perkins is still here with us to answer any questions people might have. So discussion for the board. Councilor Barlow.
And thank you for this item. Two questions I have are, this money is only for 2 years, and so would this go to fund operations of the center, or will it be for specific one-time expenses that you're anticipating having? And what will you do without this money? Subsequent years. I guess this is for.
Well, perhaps we can have Dr. Perkins start. She has a meeting regularly with Christine, and then Christine, I did not mean to put you on the spot, so if you'd like to supplement anything that Dr. Perkins has to offer, you're more than welcome.
And I apologize for having sent these over earlier. I just literally wasn't able to get to this agenda and the subsequent agenda tonight until early this afternoon.
Of course.
Yeah, no worries. And so again, originally when that money was allocated in the REIB budget, its listed purpose was for a feasibility study. Obviously, that is not necessary anymore since the center has actualized and come to fruition. And so, but they've been able to do so, right, with with little, right, and running on donations and community support. And so, yes, certainly some operational pieces, but really programmatic pieces. They're doing a ton of work for youth in Burlington, particularly are really what I would say is probably our most underserved youth community around folks who are biracial, right, and having that experience. We know that as the majority of our students of color in Burlington in the school district or whatnot. And so I'll let Christine go further, but I think part operations, but in large part going towards direct programmatic efforts.
Thank you, Kelly. Christine, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Dr. Perkins, and thank you for your work on this, you know, especially being still relatively new to the job. I really appreciate you and just really look forward to our collaboration. And I guess the answer to the question is, you know, it's like, as Dr. Perkins said, originally, years back, we were talking about a feasibility study, but that has already happened. And, you know, as is the case, a lot of times we're seeking certain funding, you know, through grants or through donations or fundraising campaigns. And if it doesn't work out, you know, we have to have contingency plans. So we have managed somehow or another to survive over the past couple of years. And I guess the clearest answer to that question is that we're in a situation right now where we're constantly trying to figure out sustainability for the Richard Kemp Center. So I would say that it's probably both. It's for specific programs like some that have been mentioned, but it's also just for sustaining the center and making sure the doors are open and either heat or air conditioning is on depending on the season. So that's my answer to that question.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Christine. Did you have a second question, Councilor Barlow? You already done, okay. Further questions or comments from board members? Councilor Newbeeser?
Just to say that I'll be supporting this. It seems like we, committed to getting this money out to a community partner. And we city government didn't get that money out. So I'm glad that, appreciative of the work to figure this out. I'm glad we're getting that money out the door.
Thank you, Counselor. And I will just say, before I ask for a motion on this item, I also encourage folks to, in this very comprehensive memo that I know Dr. Perkins and her team have worked on for a while in partnership with the Kemp Center, and really, frankly, going back in time and pulling together a lot of historical pieces so that this is well documented around the investment in other cultural or community-based centers, which, as you can see in some of the originating resolutions going back to 2020, there have been significant investments in other parts of our community. And so as we look at the at the Richard Kemp Center and making sure that the promise is fully realized, that's a big piece of this. You can see this on they're not paginated, but page 1 of the memo, in particular for that historical context. So I'm pleased to be part of the team to bring this forward. So with that, is there a motion on this item? Councilor Carpenter?
I would move the item as proposed on civic clerk. Or there's 2 items I see. Well, no,
One item and the other is the check, the usual check.
yes, okay.
Yes. So Councilor Carpenter moves the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Barlow. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Perkins, thank you, and Christine, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on now to item 4.3, and I guess just not sure. We're going to go workers' comp later, not sure. Sure. All right, item 4.3 is a reclassification coming from the city attorney's office with our city attorney, Jessica Brown.
Good evening. I am Jessica Brown, the city attorney. I am coming to you with this request because sadly we are losing attorney Eric Ramakrishnan officially at the end of June. But he's moved to Canada, for anyone who doesn't know. And so currently he's actually finishing out this year's appointment as a contract employee. And so we would like to get the position posted as soon as possible, but to do that, we need to reclassify and retitle it. When Eric was hired in January 2024, he was hired as an assistant city attorney. Although he was new to Vermont, he had been a municipal attorney in California for 10 years, so he was very experienced. And in accordance with his experience, a little over a year ago, we reclassified and retitled his position to Assistant City Attorney, Director of General Government and Transactional Services. The director tier was created by my predecessor, Dan Richardson, and resulted in going from grade 24 to a grade 26. This request is to reclassify and retitle the director title back to Assistant City Attorney, no director, so it will result in a downgrade from 26 to 24. And that's so that we can post this as an Assistant City Attorney position, because while I hope we are lucky enough to land someone as experienced as Eric was when he started with us, I don't know what our chances of that are, so it makes sense, I think, to advertise this or post this position as an Assistant City Attorney and see what kind of.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from the board? Councilor Carpenter.
I don't feel strongly, but I'm a little bit concerned. We had the other conversation about the lack of capacity in your office, need for capacity, particularly in municipal law. So I'm a little concerned about sort of downgrading it in case you do find somebody, and or should we be looking for both? You know, it's a skill set we need, hard to find, know that, but somebody out there. And so I guess I don't want us to go too early in lowering it to keep broad recruitment out there. So I'm just sort of tossing that out there because you never know who's out there.
That's right, and I think be here, but she would be the expert to talk about sort of a range that I think is tied more to potential step than necessarily the grade, right? But I mean, ideally, and maybe this is something to think about in the future, or I don't know if it's something we can do prior to getting this position posted, but thinking about hiring for these positions on a spectrum, so that we have the ability to, if the candidates we get are all sort of new to municipal law, then they would start at a lower grade, whereas if we did get candidates who were more experienced, we could start them at a higher grade. But in my discussions with Lynn about this position at this time, where we landed was to reclassify it, taking the director title off and posting it as an assistant city attorney.
I guess I just encourage us to give us however you can come forward with the most latitude. And I know pool is hard, has been for a number of years. So things change, and I want us to be able to respond and not have a candidate come. Maybe there's, who knows, somebody, state government, said, I can't work in state government anymore, but they have a lot of experience, or, whatever the thing is, that we can respond quicker. And this is, I just want to step back, but I think because the attorney's office is so small, it isn't as much like a managerial position in maybe a larger department. You need to be nimble.
I want to add, in particular, Councilor Carpenter, because you have raised this issue in prior Board of Finance meetings, that something that is happening simultaneously is market factor analysis for the assistant city attorney positions that was considered and sort of started a few years ago, but before my time, and for reasons that I'm not entirely sure of because I wasn't here, didn't get completed. So, because I share your concerns about whether we can really be competitive based on, what municipal city government salaries look like in the legal field. But that is happening, and so that may help us a little bit. And also, I'll just add, since I mentioned that although it's not a huge cost savings, it's a little bit of a cost savings, but we didn't calculate that into sort of our cost savings for our overall city attorney budget for the coming fiscal year, so that we would have, I hope, a little bit of flexibility depending on sort of what kind of candidates we get and or if we do what we do see as a result of any market factor.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Barlow?
Thank you, and I appreciate the idea of trying to downgrade to be able to attract maybe candidates who wouldn't be qualified for a director level position. But I also concur with Councilor Carpenter that we should cast as wide a net as we can and see what we come up with. See if there are applicants that are higher, that have maybe a higher position now that might be attracted to a director position, or but not necessarily would maybe not apply for the assistant city attorney position. So I'm wondering if we could, and I don't know what the time criticality is on this, but if we could post Eric's position and see any bites, and then if we didn't, and it's a small pool in Vermont probably, but there may be people, and then if we didn't get anything, take that path. But if there's, I didn't know what the time criticality was on refunds.
Well, Eric's leaving at the end of June, officially, completely leaving. So the tentative schedule that we have right now is that I was presenting this motion to the Board of Finance tonight, and then depending on whether it got approved or not, presenting it to the City Council next Monday. And if passed at that point, I believe I have permission to post, Catherine and I at least are on the same page about posting immediately, since Eric's position is technically open since he's a contractor. If what the Board of Finance decides tonight is to not downgrade it, then I guess we could post it whenever. We can post it immediately because, again, it's officially open with Eric on a contract. We would like to get it posted as soon as possible.
Is there a procedure that doesn't allow us to post now for an assistant city attorney and Eric's position is currently? Is there like, we can't do it until something else happens?
Well, I will add, and Catherine can also chime in, of course. So the two positions that we have open right now would be Eric's Assistant City Attorney Director tier position and the Deputy City Attorney position, which is frozen as part of our budget for fiscal year 27. So it's my understanding, so I think we can only officially post for one position. And I was suggesting posting that as Assistant City Attorney, which would require a reclassification and retitling. If the Board of Finance decides differently, then I guess we would post that as a Director tier position.
Councilor Newbeezer first. Councilor Newbeezer? I'm sorry, Councilor Barlow, are you all set for now?
I'm all set for now. I just would like to maintain as much flexibility as we can for the so I was trying to find a solution.
We can come back to you as well. Councilor Newbeezer?
Yeah, thank you. I will be supporting this. I'm actually I'm not as concerned, like even the decreased grade of 24, the salary plus, and I don't specifically know the benefits offhand, but you know, generally speaking, city benefits are really healthy. I'm not as concerned as about our ability to hire across the board, and I think like people take jobs, particularly if they're coming from out of state, in Vermont for a variety of reasons, and certainly there's a lot of Vermonters who are values driven who like, yes, maybe you could go elsewhere and make more money, but a lot of folks want to do good work in the public sector, and 109,000 is nothing to sort of wag your finger at. So I feel like, yeah, I just want to throw out there that I'm actually not as concerned, and I'm skeptical of sort of chasing in different discussions, not with just this position, but others, like always comparing to, yeah, like market rate or something, or having that be the end goal, because we're just never going to be able to reach that in the same way as government. And yeah, $109,000 salary is like more than almost any job in the area. Like it's a pretty healthy salary to be making.
Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Councilor Carpenter?
Just, and I don't want to muck it up too much, and I don't know if there's a way to have a conversation with Lynn. I mean, this is a non-union job, so that isn't fair. You know, if you're going to doing a market adjustment, maybe that's a way to get out of it. I think that you can do that really quickly then. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, that Councilor Newbeezer would find that state and other values-driven groups may pay higher. We really should understand that. And so I just want to make sure that we do and we're not.
And I believe my most recent communication with Lynn Reagan about this was that she has started that process.
Okay.
I do see Tony Berry online, so I don't know if he has anything else to add. HR.
Sorry, folks. I do not have anything else to add.
Okay.
Did you hear our conversation? And we're just trying to get flexibility to get the highest candidate.
I did hear it, but I'm sorry. I don't have any additional information.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
All right, so board, what would we like to do with the item as presented this evening? Councilor Barlow?
I'm not going to stand in the way of moving this forward. I would just, you know, I think we've had challenges hiring different for different positions. I think city attorney's done a lot of work on that this week. So if you're comfortable with this downgrade as a way to attract the talent that the candidate pool that you think you just say that casting a wider net is always better candidates, but I'll be supportive. I'll support whatever is recommended.
Thank you, Council Barlow. I will add, just in my short-ish time of being here, and I believe City Attorney Brown mentioned this, we often struggle to attract people with the kind of experience we think would just walk in the door and have a robust pool of candidates around municipal law in particular. What I've seen is successful hires of folks who have been able to be trained on the job with a couple of our assistant city attorneys who come with strong legal skills, or perhaps not a strong portfolio, again, around community law in particular, or even, community law specifically. So I think that this is not only a fair salary, but an informed strategic approach for how we can maintain capacity and bring someone in who can work amongst our team and merge in well with how Attorney Brown's been leading the office. And I trust her judgment on this path forward, and I think we should try it. But based on, again, the actual experience she has had trying to hire in this office with prior openings in the last 2 years.
I don't have anything else to add, so.
Okay, is there potentially a motion in the mix?
The motion as indicated. So.
I appreciate that, Councilor Barlow. Thank you. Councilor Barlow makes the motion. Is there a second? Councilor Newbeezer, thank you. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, on to our last deliberative item, item 4 point something. Chief Curtin, 4.4, we are. AEMT, average final compensation for non-union demand staff. Up on stage.
Okay, so a little bit of background. The BFFA provides a 4% incentive for advanced EMT pay. Non-union command staff are eligible for the similar pay under the FLIPS fire leadership pay scale. However, the treatment for retirement purposes has not been formally established. July 1st of 2025, the BFFA was able to roll that into the CBA, and they now get the 4% into the average final compensation for AEMT pay. However, non-union does not have that as of right now, and it has a potential to become a deterrent for promotion for a battalion chief. So I have an opening coming up in September, and with all the reductions of the losses of the bonuses, plus that 4%, it's a deterrent for promotion for battalion chief. So we're looking to see if we can have that 4% AEMT incentive included for pensionable earnings for non-union employees, and we will be contributing employee retirement contributions will be required on this compensation. Questions?
Questions for the chief? Councilor Barlow.
Thank you. Is this included in budget presentations?
It was not included in the budget presentation.
I mean, but it's accounted for.
Oh, correct. Yes, correct. Because it's already, we already have the AEMT pay figured out in that. We would just be contributing towards the average final compensation.
Councilor, further questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Make the motion as indicated as clerk.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Newbeezer. Any further discussion before I call the question? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Okay. All right, we are moving right along here. Our next item is an item that is for informational purposes only. Item 5.1. 5, I don't know, the budget. We have 3 more pieces of our budget process before we reach the end of this journey. Our first one is on retirement. We'll let Catherine walk us through the next 3. So first we'll do retirement, then liability insurance and workers' compensation, and then finally health and dental insurance. Deo Shao.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will start by saying that all of these are rich areas for discussion, and I think that while our focus here today is the budget numbers, I think that we might want to discuss further follow-ups and other conversations the board might like to have around any or all of these important funds. We have had in the past some discussions around property insurance and retirement, but it hasn't been a part of sort of our regular annual course of doing business, and that might be something we want to incorporate to allow time for more strategic discussion. But jumping right into the retirement fund, I have here in small numbers an important executive summary from the city's actuarial valuation. And there is a lot of important information on this slide, and we won't go over all of it. And I see Councilor Newbeezer is raising his hand, and so I think we should recognize him. Oh, I think it is just because he is not, needs to be promoted. All right. Okay. Looking at the bottom of this chart, you can see one of the things that former Councilor Busher was discussing, and that is the big picture of the fund's funded ratio. And that stands at 68.5% for the fund overall. You'll note that it is divided up by Class A and Class B, and that Class A is funded at 66.6% and Class B is at 70.2%. And when you put that all together, we get a total fund of 68.5%. You'll also notice that that funded ratio has improved over last year. The year ending June 30th, 2024, we had a funded ratio of 66.3%. Those gains were largely due to the fact that the market has performed better than our expectations. And so we were able to, quote unquote, make up some ground there. One of the questions that Sharon asked was, what is a good funded ratio? And of course, in a perfect world, we'd like to see that at 100%. We don't often see local or state governments at 100%. And so this is something that we are in discussions with the consultants who help us manage this to make sure that we are in the right range. And I'll say this Vermont state plan is right around where we are. They are hovering around 71%. And we also like to benchmark ourselves to other state and local funds. And so we are a little bit behind where we would like to be. And so we are working with both our actuary as well as our investment firm on strategies of how do we improve our funded ratio. And that's something that we might want to discuss. You know, the board might want a presentation from either or both of those entities, and I'd be pleased to do that. You can also see up at the top the number of members that are in Class A, Class B, and it's pretty interesting to look at how that's divided up by employees, retirees, etc. And one of the things that I will bring to your attention is some growth in the number of employees, but also the growth in the average planned salary. And so that, of course, drives up the benefits that we owe to those potential future retirees. And so that's something we keep an eye on as well. Looking more into the budget numbers, the revenues for retirement for FY27 are close to $25 million, and that's an increase of $1 million over last year. And where do we get that money from? Three main places. Sharon, I have updated the slides, and I'm not sure if Lori has posted them, so you'll see a few tweaks here. And it was confusing, and I appreciate you pointing that out. This $16.7 million, that's coming from property taxes. That is the retirement portion that the city pays is essentially a pass-through. That is one of our dedicated or splinter taxes. And I've added some more information on the next slide so we can see what that's been doing over time. We also have employee contributions. And then of course, our money is also growing over time. And so we have interest or investment income. This is some of the information that I added just this afternoon to show the growth and changes of the retirement tax rate. If I had more time, I was going to do it in comparison to the overall property tax rate. But I can certainly say that over the past 2 to 3 years for sure, and I would suspect going back further, that the retirement splinter tax is our largest splinter tax. You know, because I've been talking about it for many budget years, that we have about 14 different splinter taxes, and some of them are quite small. Some of them are less than a penny. But you can see here, we're at about 18.5 cents for retirement, and that generates just under $11 million here for the fund. A little bit more on the employee contributions. Overall, the city pays 70% of the retirement costs and employees pay 30%. And within that 30% pool are individual collective bargaining agreements with the city's 4 unions, lay out how much each individual employee can pay. As all employees, we get to that 30%, but each union has negotiated the limits that you see here. So it affects each person differently. And of course, these first two, the first one is police, the second one is fire, and those are our Class A employees, and they retire at a much earlier age, and so that is why their contribution limit is higher than the Class B employees who are listed on that third bullet. Our expenses for the year, you will see, are also up over last year. And of course, far and away, the largest expense on the retirement side is our benefit payments, paying our retirees. The other small expenses you will see here, we utilize an external service provider called USI, and they manage a external service center. So you'll see the charge here for that. That is somewhere where employees can call. I don't know if it's 24 hours a day, but they can call and they have great hours. They can log on online. They can run all sorts of scenarios to see what it would be like if I retired, if this, then that. And that pays for all of that. But you'll also see here on this last line, we do have an employee as a part of our payroll department that dedicates part of their time to retirement, because while we had originally envisioned all of that running through the service center, we realized that Burlington employees and retirees really like to meet with someone in person. And so we still have someone on staff here who can help connect you, do the personal touch, and also just frankly speaking, like if a retiree dies and we have a spouse, like you don't want to just say, call this 800 number. It's nice to have that employee here providing that personal touch. And then just in the middle, we do have a separate contract. It's with the same company that runs the service center, but they're the ones who are calculating the ADEC and doing things like that for us. All right, we've got plenty more exciting things to talk about, but I would love to answer any questions you may have about retirement.
Keeping an eye on the time with 2 more presentations, I'll try to keep us to about 10-ish minutes, maybe a little under, depending on questions people have. So, to the board, questions, Councilor Barlow.
My question may be not a dumb question, but perhaps. So on the revenue side and on the expense side, like we'll start with the revenue, it says for FY 27, 24.7 billion, and revenue comprised of, if you add those numbers, does that add up? The other one doesn't. So 16. Actually, let's just jump down to the expenses. This one doesn't add. This is 20. It comprised of, it's 26.5 million. So, and the total expenses are 29.3. What's the delta? It's 2.5. Sorry, I'm doing math on the fly. Never a good thing.
No, that's okay. The delta between the
26.8.
expenses, the expected revenues and expenses.
The delta is that number in parentheses.
It is close to it, and I don't have a good answer for you, but I will get one unless Brad knows something I don't.
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
I believe, we'll follow up just to confirm, but I believe that difference accounts for the ADEC, which is the actuarially defined employer contribution, which does not always equal the full payout of the benefits. When USI calculates the amount of money that the employer side needs to put in, given all of the various variables, one of those variables is an assumed discount rate or the rate of growth over time, which reduces the amount needed to put in order to meet our long-term sustainability.
So it's a couple $300,000 less because they're assuming you're going to get that
through investments over time. That's right.
And the other one, just to go back, is on the revenue side, those two high up. This is on the expense side, but we're still thank you for that explanation. The other thing I would say is, like, what would be useful to know, what the public probably would like to know, is what the impact on the property tax rate is up there. Overall, and then any potential increases. That's helpful information. But thank you for the presentation.
Great. You, Councilor Barlow. Other questions on this item, Councilor Carpenter?
Just to refresh my memory, and maybe a work session would be helpful. We're still 100% on a defined benefit plan?
Yes, we are.
Have we had any recent I know that's a very long-term thing to look at, but again, I encourage us to bring that up again, but, and I bring it up for two reasons, for many reasons, but also tying into concerns I've heard about in the employment market, which is less value by newer employees, younger employees, and I don't want to be generic, but younger employees who really don't view the benefit of a defined benefit. They really would like a defined contribution. And I know that going in years, defined contribution, something needs to equal defined benefit, but in the out years, there's a lot of opportunity in that, including maybe opening up the employment market where people who would rather manage their own money, manage that benefit. So I just, again, it's a mammoth task, but I encourage us to spend some time really looking at that. And then kind of in that same vein, I really do think we have to stop calling it a splinter tax. It's not splinter, it's fundamental, and we have to pay it no matter what. You know, we could drop out of GMT if we wanted to. We can't drop out of retirement. So we just need more public education around this is fundamental. So.
Well, non-negotiable.
What, and non-negotiable.
And maybe, you know, how it works and the fact that this and the dead tax are things that are going up and don't require voter approval. And so I was thinking maybe to do some more NPA education around those things. It's a great idea.
Councilor Hughes.
Well, not to immediately disagree with my colleague. I was actually going to say the opposite, which was I think the defined benefit plan is a really good recruiting tool. And I was talking with my sister and I were talking with my grandmother the other day, and my sister's a teacher out of state, and she said, my grandmother was like, well, like, you're going to retire though. We're talking about just money and life and whatever. So you're going to retire and you get a pension. And my sister made the point that for my generation, pensions don't exist almost anywhere. Anyway, that's a broader side discussion. But I guess my potentially dumb question, or just kind of zooming out or more high level, and I appreciate the information and the work that's gone into it and presenting it to us. I guess I would be curious to better understand like how safe our fund is. If that makes sense. Because not at all being someone with a particularly strong background in finance, based on my basic understanding, I am fearful that whatever, I mean, we're like living through like the .com bubble, but for AI, it feels like, and like how does that impact, I guess, you don't have to necessarily answer now, but one thing I want to better understand, or I think is important for the community to understand, is how does that sort of like impending bubble pop affect us? And are there steps we're taking to protect ourselves from that? Which is, I guess, a little unrelated and high level, but I think really important for us to understand.
It is really important, and it gives me a chance to share something that didn't make it onto the slides because I ran out of time, so thank you. This is some of the items, like this responds in part to how our risk is reduced. The first is our investment policy statement, which is linked here, which makes sure that we are following the best practices that have been advised to us by our investment manager, and that we are highly diversified in our portfolio. Then I'll just kind of quickly mention these things, and then perhaps we can discuss them more in an upcoming work session. You'll note on this second bullet, this 10-year smoothing and 5-year smoothing does not have to do with my hair, although I've been wearing it straight more. It has to do with the fact that if you look over here in this third column, you will see that our effective rate of return on our assets is everywhere from this banner year after COVID, where we were up 31%, to this horrible year, and this is what you're worried about, I think, Councillor Bubizer, where we had a negative rate of return of minus 13%. When that happens, whether we have a good year or a bad year, it does not hit the fund all at once. Because as you can see over here, we assume that we can hit a rate of return of 7.1%. And that is down from 8%. So that's one of the things we've also done is we realized that we were assuming an 8% rate of return and that was too high. Now we are at 7.1 and both with the actuaries and with our investment manager, they have said 7.1 makes sense and we're gonna stay there. But over 5 years, all of this gets smoothed out. So if we have one really horrible year, it affects us, but we only get 20% of that each year so that we have the chance for the market to bounce back. So I hope that alleviates just a little bit of that stress. And like I said, I think our professionals will be able to explain it in much greater detail. But, you know, we have a whole committee. We have these two firms that we're working with who are certainly advising us about these very issues.
We just are about out of time. I will just add that when we come back and talk in more depth with our financial advisors on retirement, when I was first diving in, as maybe to dust my own brain off on our status of our pension, Catherine very kindly dug up a lot of documents, including a very old document that is new. Everything is new again. It's a full cycle. Before I was on city council, I served on a retirement advisory committee for the city, along with Karen Paul, who I don't even know if she was on council quite yet, where we looked at exactly that question of a defined benefit versus a defined contribution. We did a lot of research alongside the financial partners at that time for the city, under Mayor Kiss, I believe, at the time. And a lot of the research and the arguments there that were considered where the city asked that same question, I think still stand. I know still stand. We can certainly get into sort of the mechanics of it all, as well as how other cities, the trends of other cities, because the vast majority of them still hold defined benefit plans. And I think that's an important contextual consideration. Certainly that question was raised to me when I was out talking about the police and fire, splinter tax. They're also fundamental and core with members of the community during the MPA, because part of our budget presentation was just educating people about the other splinter tax that are not voted on by voters. So I heard on that, and we will come back with more. So with that, let us move on to our second informational item, item 5.2 maybe. I don't have my agenda in front of me, but yes. 5.2 sounds good. Liability insurance and workers' compensation. Is HR Director Lynn Reagan here for this item with us, or just here for solidarity? Oh, don't look scared. It's okay. I know. We're just here for solidarity. I understand. It's probably not
But if I have questions, yes. Yeah, I do want to say, I am here to present on this, but I do want to say a big shout out to Director Lynn Reagan and her department, because they do a lot of this work. And again, I've given us a sort of teaser slide at the beginning that gives us some interesting stuff to think about. And it is not by any means we have a lot more information is what I'm trying to say. So Travelers is our insurance, and we work with Acrisure. And as you can see here, this is the latest information we have on workers' comp and our top 5 causes of workers' comp. And as you can see, far and away, strains are at the top of the list. And then we've got falls and strikes. And so this is the world that we live in. You can see the claims and the incurred dollars. What I didn't show you here, although it is real, is that due to the hard work of HR and also Tim Williams, that these numbers are going down year over year. And so we really appreciate that. Lots of interesting data. If you are interested, Liver, I can get that to you. This budget is really made up of two different budgets. The first one is liability insurance, and that is just over $3 million, and then workers' comp, and that is just under $2 million. In general, this is up just over about $500,000 from what we budgeted last year. And as you can see, there's a portion of this that is general fund, and then we have contributions from our special revenue funds as well as our enterprise funds. On this slide, it says revenues, and it should be expenses. But you can see here how we pay for those different things. And so there's a lot of different insurances that the city carries. And you can imagine with all of the different vehicles, services, and properties that the city has. We are a complicated insurer, but we have benefited from a strong partnership with Acrisure, which used to be known as Hickok and Boardman, and we have worked hard with them to make sure that we have really low premiums, and they work with us to make sure that we have the best insurance that we can. Also on the workers' comp claims, you can see similar to what we were looking at with retirement, that the claims and benefits are the vast majority of the cost there, but there is some for the actual insurance and the administration. This one's pretty straightforward, but I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next and final informational item, item 5.3. Health and dental insurance. I have it all memorized now.
All right, health and dental. So this is a slide from the presentation that Nancy gave to us about 6 weeks ago, and it's just a reminder that we are not alone in this, but our health insurance costs have, I mean, if you just look, inflation is the lowest thing on this chart. You know, it has far exceeded both our general operating and our personnel costs. A reminder for anyone who is listening that the city is self-insured. And so that means that we as the city do pay for the medical costs that are incurred by and large. And you'll see that that is very expensive. That is over $22 million a year and growing at a steady rate, as we just saw on the graph, a growth of over $2 million from last year. Similar, although I did not have time to update the slides like I did for retirement, but we have a similar kind of cost share arrangement, but instead of 70-30, like with retirement, it's 80-20. And so the city pays 80% and employees contribute 20%. Again, there is an individual employee percentage, which is for police and fire, up to 6.5% of an individual's salary. For IBEW, it's 6.75, and for ASSE, it is 6.95. All again adding up to that 20%. And then in terms of where do we spend that money? Almost all of it is on actual health claims. You will see here that there is a cost called insurance. And this is where I might phone a friend if needed. But this is for any insured person who, where's our stop loss? This is for stop loss, right? And it is over what amount that we? It's over a large amount. Once you get to $250,000, then the city does not pay, it wouldn't come out of the 19.3, then that stop loss insurance would kick in, and that's what we're paying for the $1.7 million. Because even though we look at past historic trends, sadly, you don't know when someone's going to come down with either a catastrophic illness or even just some of the great new prescription drugs that are available now that someone needs to be on for a long time or the rest of their life, and they can be very expensive. As you can see here, dental claims and benefits, pretty cheap, so we can afford to keep everyone a pretty good teeth, that's great. And our administrative costs are also pretty low. So if there's any tiny spots of great news here, it is that. And yeah, it's that we have good teeth and low administrative costs. And I'm happy to take questions on this one as well.
Or all night. Okay, well, I don't think you shut up. All right, we got questions from the board. Councilor Carpenter.
Well, just actually, I've heard that many dentists are not accepting insurance, so that this could become a new point of conversation. They accept the insurance, but they'll charge above the insurance amount for especially complicated dental issues. And on your stop loss, I was just curious, is that per illness or per person?
It is per person, I am almost sure. I'm looking at my colleague.
It is one of the things, if you don't mind, like our health benefits advisor is really digging into right now, which is why there's a couple of options that they're gonna guide us towards that are in flux.
Okay, so we can circle back.
Yeah, we can get back to. I would just curious.
It's one of the things, this is the time of year where we're doing the heavy negotiation for next year, so we'll confirm, let you know if there's any changes.
Other comments or questions? Councilor Barlow.
And just to follow the stop loss insurance, it's like, it would be good to do the analysis on how many times in the last year have we gone above the 250 and whether or not we can increase that to 500,000 instead of 250 for one last one.
We can do that. And Akua does that, and then I'll turn it over to you, Lynn, on a very regular basis. So I appreciate that, and we're happy to share that with you, but I have found it to be very interesting. It seems to fluctuate regularly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who's covered, who's sick?
Yeah, it is definitely something that our broker assists with because it does vary. And so we have increased our stop loss insurance based on historic use of it, and then we have found that we've lowered it too. So it all depends on the cases that come up, but it really is a key, protector insurance, if you will, to help the city keep their costs down under control.
Sure. And my other question is like that, which is, do we know that being self-insured is the best and least expensive, best value? Or do you want to, whatever you want to sell for, plan for?
I've been prepping for this one.
Okay.
Yes.
The data indicates, or the research that I've done, especially during this budget session or preparation, is that yes, being self-insured is still on the whole better. The exact percentage better on average it is than going to market for an organization of our size and demographic makeup. That exact percentage is escaping me, but I'll follow back up with you. I was surprised at how much better the data says self-insurance is, because I thought it was going to be close and something that we would want to look into maybe jumping into the market for, but our analysis kind of halted that process early in the fall.
It's good to know it's that clear of a choice.
It is.
Okay, any other questions or comments from members of the board on this item?
Just in terms of research, I know the state shifted this year for, maybe it was just retirees, but this whole conversation of out of network, in network, and how much you allow in network and out of network. And I made some presumption we don't have any caps on out of network, but is that a place to look?
Yeah, we do have a separate deductible for the out-of-network use, so, yeah. We have, negotiated rates to try to keep costs down, and therefore our deductible is lower and our out-of-pocket max is lower on the in-network side. But there are times, and we do have a strong network in the area, so we're lucky in that aspect, but there are times an individual has to go out of network, but they are set up separately.
Anything further? Councilor Newbeeser.
And apologies if you've touched on this, but I wonder if internally there's been conversation about what staff feel is driving the increase in healthcare costs.
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a cost of new prescription drugs that come to the market, and there's not a generic developed yet, so they're at high cost. I think just rates in general, hospitals are charging more for care, and that falls back to us as individuals that utilize the insurance, and therefore the cost gets passed to us when we go visit the doctor, and it's just a combination of impacts.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I guess I asked that because I know that this is an ongoing conversation at the state level around how do we control costs, and there's been some limited movement in that respect, but I think just something to think about as we're prioritizing our ability to lobby as a city, and seeing this as a priority given the impact.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, team. With that, this is our last informational item that does not require action by the Board of Finance. So with that, there are no other agenda items, and I will adjourn the Board of Finance at 5:02 p.m. Thank you very much.